All right, good afternoon. Investors are buying 75% of the homes here in Canada. That's what I'm talking about today, and it is bad. From Better Dwelling, Canadian real estate investors captured nearly 75% of ownership growth. Canadian real estate investors may be a bigger problem than even the most aggressive assumptions. Investors had to account for 3 in 4 new homeowners driven by Ontario, where investors represented 84% of net growth. Then they go on to say how marginal buyers impact real estate prices. And then they say a marginal buyer is the person or firm willing to pay whatever it takes to beat the market. They aren't just outbidding everyone, they set the pace of the game through comps. These buyers are a small share of the market, but they have a disproportionately large influence. The problem is amplified by irrational exuberance. Investors aren't buying a home to live in, they're buying a return with the expectation that any price can be paid, recouped by tenants. That hasn't worked out in Toronto, creating a systemic risk that hopefully the whole country never realizes. So in a normal environment, an end user would be willing to pay more than an investor. However, in an environment where home prices are going up 30% per year, rent is going up 20% per year, and interest rates are zero, a buyer would be willing, an investor would be willing to buy an asset with future growth priced in because they know that growth is coming very quickly, right? Like if a property, maybe an end user is willing to pay $530, I might be willing to pay $550 in an environment where I know the home might be worth $600 in the next 12 months. Maybe I'm cash flow negative $500 today, but if rent is going up 20% per year, I can be neutral next year. And that's how we ended up in that speculative fervor. What's the word that they use? Fever. So again, Better Dwelling does a great job. I love reading their stuff. But again, I don't think the investors are they are a problem, but they're a symptom of a bigger illness, which is what I've said a million times. When you drop interest rates to nothing, and then the Bank of Canada goes on record saying this.
Interest rates are very low and they're going to be there for a long time.
You can't expect people to not buy real estate. Like I remember looking at condos in the back half of 2020 and I was like, everything is cash flowing, right? When real interest rates are negative 9%, it's a no-brainer. Like, you can't blame people for taking the opportunity, right? Because like the narrative out there is like, oh, these investors are so greedy and they're just straight up bad people, right? But if I'm in a room with 300 random people I've never met before, and I have a $50,000 Rolex and I take it off my wrist and I place it on the table and I'm like, hey, everybody, can you watch my Rolex for me? I'm just going to go take a piss. And I come back and the Rolex is gone. Who am I going to blame? I'm going to be like, oh man, these shitty people, I can't believe they took my Rolex. Or am I going to say, hey, maybe I shouldn't have left the Rolex on the table when I went to the washroom in a room of 300 random people I've never met before, right? Like if you leave your car door unlocked at night with the wallet clearly visible in the dash and you wake up and it's gone, are you going to say, oh my God, I can't believe people would do that? Or are you going to say, maybe I shouldn't have left the door unlocked? I'm not saying investors are criminals. It's a very easy, I guess, metaphor, very easy example to use is that you can't blame people for taking the opportunity to do something when it's presented, right? Instead, you should blame whatever caused the conditions for that opportunity to exist because you can control the conditions. You can't control people's reactions to those conditions. So I'm not saying that 84% of new purchases being investors is a good thing. I'm just saying that that is a symptom of a problem. And I'm going to prove that point even more here. Okay. So Canadian real estate investors cornered the market, capturing over 4 in 5 new owners in Ontario. So this is the average across Canada, 72.5%. 84.4% in Ontario, BC's 63.6%, so 2 in 3 buyers. Prince Edward Island is 44.9%, New Brunswick 26.8%, and you have Nova Scotia at 16.28%. I think they actually banned out of province investors at some point in the last couple of years. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I don't even think you can buy there anymore unless you live there. Maybe somebody can confirm that in the comments. But yeah, this is share of investors for new owners, people who just bought as of 2023. All right. However, if you look at Canadian real estate investors' share of total housing stock, so of all of the homes currently in existence, what percentage of those are owned by investors? Well, the average across Canada is 25.5. And Prince Edward Island is 34. Nova Scotia is 33, BC is 33, New Brunswick 31, and Ontario is only 21.7. So clearly, this is a new issue. Well, what's changed and what was different from 2023 from maybe the last 30 years that the amount of people investing in properties has basically 4x'd in that province? Well, I would have to guess that it has something to do with interest rates being extremely low. That would be my guess. Now, it is interesting that people were still investing that much in 2023 because I would expect this to be maybe a 2021, 2022 thing. But again, I mean, this isn't new. Like if you look at any asset, Bitcoin, stock market, it does gold. Once the price starts going up, people are willing to pay more for it because if the acceleration in growth is very high, the way people look at it is like, well, I don't have to wait very long to make money, even if I pay a high price for this. And then that's why everybody piles in. But what initially kickstarted that was the interest rates going down to basically nothing. And then, the Bank of Canada saying that like, hey, rates are going to be this low for a long time. So then everybody knew like, hey, I can just go invest. I can be basically cash flow positive. At least you were in the back end of 2020. And rates are going to be low for a very long time, which means the home prices should go up for a long time, which means I'm going to be safe by making this investment. Peter Schiff makes a good point about a lot of things. I know a lot of people like Bitcoiners don't like Peter Schiff, but I think he's a smart guy and I've read his books and I listened to his podcast. And he said that the Bernie Madoff issue, that whole Ponzi scheme, the thing that allowed it to go on for 40 plus years wasn't the fact that people were getting amazing returns, because people were skeptical the whole time. Like, how is this even possible? What threw gasoline on that whole thing was the SEC audited the Bernie Madoff scheme, and then they gave it a stamp of approval and said it's totally legit. Once that happened, everyone felt safe piling into the scheme, right? So when you come out and say, hey, interest rates are going to be low for a very long time, that's like the SEC stamp of approval on the Bernie Madoff situation in this case. So yes, 84% of new purchases in Ontario being investors is terrible. And that is clearly speculation, because over the long term, if the average is 22% and now suddenly this 1 year it's 84%, what's changed, right? You would say that would have to be speculation based on whatever conditions existed in the market at that time. And the reason why that much investment is bad is the problem may seem abstract because the impact most definitely is not. The problem may seem abstract, but the impact most definitely is not. Canada's disproportionate focus on housing as an investment is a primary drag on productivity, which is effectively a drag on quality of life and competition. And then in another Better Dwelling post, you can see that Canadian household debt is second highest among advanced economies. Here we are way up here. The US is way down here, and the Euro area 20 is all the way down here. So we have a lot of household debt. Goes on to say, one post-global financial crisis study revealed that household debt above 85% turns into a long-term drag on growth. A subsequent paper found that household debt to GDP between 60 and 80% stops becoming effective for short-term growth and starts intensifying a long-term drag on consumption. So here we are at basically 100%. And when you have the bulk of people's income going to debt servicing, there's less money overall in the economy to spend on consumption and investment, and it turns into a drag, and you get no economic growth. But again, you have to ask, why is everybody putting their money in housing, right? And I think it's because there just really isn't any other opportunities in Canada, right? Like, you can invest your money in housing with our extremely low interest rates, and let basically real negative rates devalue that debt every year, which is what people have been doing. Or you can buy the TSX, which, you know, in my personal thing, like I don't understand oil and gas. I don't really want to buy oil and gas companies, which is like the bulk of the TSX. And you have the Canadian banks, which are extremely, extremely leveraged. And although they do great and make money, I don't know if I would feel comfortable owning that long term. So you basically have in Canada real estate, or you have the US equities, or like crypto, right? And I would say investing in housing is probably going to be more productive than US equities or Bitcoin. I mean, look, Bitcoin is like friggin' $7 trillion sitting there doing nothing. You want to talk about unproductive? I mean, nothing happens in that whole space. It's just dead money sitting there doing nothing. But I am not an expert on the overall macro outlook of the Canadian economy and what we should be doing to improve GDP and all those things. But again, I mean, you know, you look at what opportunities have been created. Real estate investment was the opportunity. Everybody piled into it. I don't think you can blame people for seizing the opportunity. I think you should blame the condition, whatever created the conditions that then created the opportunity so people can seize it. So that's my thoughts today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe. If you want to chat with me about buying or selling real estate in the Fraser Valley, there's a link down in the description. Otherwise, I'm that Agent Kelly. I'm making moves to move you. Peace.